The Great Depression was a time in America that made it harder for people to live their daily lives. In 1929, the stock market crashed, and some things that caused this were industries such as steel and oil began to lose money, and people wanted to get rich quick, so they bought stock on margin, and this caused stock prices to be much higher than what they were really worth. There were many effects of the stock market crash. Some economic effects were unemployment rates soared up, investors and savers lost their retirement, people lost trust in American banks and started to take all their money out, and countries that had borrowed money from American banks and had U.S. stocks lost everything. Some social effects were poor diets that led to health problems, and a lot of law breaking began. Some psychological effects where the suicide rate rose 30% and 3 times as many people were being admitted to mental hospitals. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the leader that America needed in the time of the Great Depression. He was confident, had an understanding of what the people needed, and became warm-hearted towards Americans. During the Great Depression, Franklin D. Roosevelt made a plan called the New Deal. There were many programs created to give people jobs and help boost the economy and restore society back to where it was before the Great Depression. There were 3 types of programs, ones that brought relief, recovery, and reform. An example of a relief program would be the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. This was a relief because it helped people get food, and it also help farmers to sell their food by setting it at one price. An example of recovery program would be the Glass-Steagall Banking Act. This is a recovery because this act helped people to gain back lost confidence in the banking system. An example of a reform would be the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is a reform because it makes sure that people can't sell stocks on margin. President Roosevelt had to spend money in the New Deal to make sure that America's economy could recover from the Great Depression. In 1922, in Italy, democracies voted in Benito Mussolini. Mussolini invaded African countries to invoke nationalism and pride in his empire. In Germany in 1933, Adolf Hitler was voted in as chancellor. He immediately eliminated free press and quickly rebuilt the German army. Because dictators were coming to power, the world found ways to respond to them. The British were appeased by Germany, which got Germany more land. America took the stand of isolationism, and by doing this, America avoided all political ties with other countries. The Atlantic Charter was between America and Britain. It was a declaration of free trade among nations and allowed nations to choose their own governments. The Lend-Lease Act was when America leased weapons to other countries that were important to the U.S. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, for one main reason, and that was to try to make it so that America wouldn't be able to keep Japan from invading other countries. This attack wasn't a total success because America still had ships and aircrafts to fight with. America wanted to become an offensive part in the fight against Japan in the Pacific. America won victory over Japan in the Battle of Midway, getting the U.S. on the offensive against Japan. In August 1945, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on 2 cities in Japan. After these bombs were dropped, the buildings in those cities were wiped out and everyone in those cities died. On August 10, 1945, Japan surrendered and ended World War II. After World War II, America was changed. There was more diversity of people. Africans became involved in military, and women also became involved in the military, but they did not go into combat. A drawback to Africans in the army was that in 1942, troops started to get segregated. There were many effects around the world after World War II. After the war, America and the Soviet Union were the only countries with a stable economy. This led to the Cold War between the Soviet Union and America. The Holocaust was a mass murder of over 6 million Jews by the Nazi Party in Germany, which Adolf Hitler was chancellor of. Then in 1948, Jews were able to take back Israel after 2,000 years. All of these effects from World War II touched many people's lives.